Yeah. It's Wednesday, September 30th, 2020. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about the Thundercats. So, if you listen to our Tuesday show or you don't live under a rock, despite the world being on fire and the rise of fascism and everything, Star Wars Squadrons is coming out in 2 days.
All right, so this is basically a game, it is is it the culmination of Geek Night's unrealized potential where we talked about every genre of game that had not been, that had been dead for a long time and that no one had brought back.
What a panel to have not been able to record. I wish we had a recording
we got the slides.
Of it. I do have the slides. We should bring those slides out and do a follow-up.
But unlike that panel, we can't redo because it's not true anymore.
No. There is very little untapped space now in the gaming world, and there are other reasons why things don't get made. But yeah, the point of that panel was there's all these obvious, guaranteed to make money games you should just make based on previous games that were popular that just no one did for some reason. And this is the penultimate one. Remake TIE Fighter, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, X-Wing Alliance on modern tech. And let people fight.
The last game, there are some free space shooting games out there, right?
Yeah, some of them are just they're really just more like MMOs, or they're not good. Or
what's that one where docking is really, you have to be really careful docking and stuff?
That actually does not narrow it down that much.
it's one people keep talking about. No, that's the scam Kickstarter one, right?
Yeah, but there is some flying around in that one.
Anyway, the point is there are some recent games that are technically free space shooters, right? But they're not really free space shooters.
They're not what we wanted. We wanted X-Wings and TIE Fighters in a very particular way.
Right. It doesn't have to be X-Wings. There are some flight. There's Ace Combat type games which are flight, but that's not in space, right? That's air, right? It's not the same thing. So there were some games that were sort of Descent remakes in a fashion, right? But Descent is inside. It's still a free space shooter, but it's inside, right? You don't go outdoors in a big open area, right?
But anyway,
yeah, so it's been. When did X-Wing Alliance come out?
Oh my God, X-Wing Alliance is so old. I don't even remember.
X-Wing Alliance came out in 1999, so it's been 21 years since we have had a game in this series of live out your fantasy of being a Star Wars fighter pilot for either Rebels or the Empire.
I was hyper obsessed with TIE Fighter as a kid. That game was so good.
Here we go. Finally, in Friday, 2 days from the recording of this podcast, tomorrow for most of you, it comes out. It's coming from EA, which is bad, but somehow, I don't know how this happened. If you look at all the information available about this game, somehow, on paper, EA has done everything right. The game's $40, a reasonable price, probably too cheap, in fact, considering what it costs to make games these days. There doesn't seem to be any DLC. There doesn't seem to be any pay to win. There doesn't seem to be
microtransactions of any kind. And the fact that they said that in the original press release, they knew people like the people like us were all watching that early press release, just waiting for it to be terrible. And they were 2 minutes in, they're no microtransactions, none at all.
It appears to be a skill-based game where nothing has been simplified or dumbed down in any way, shape, or form. And all of the preview teaser videos of the game show things that only excite and do not disappoint. So my expectations are still not high because
I've been burned
I know how the
before.
world works.
But
the problem
is,
times, right? But I'm still going to pay $40 and try to find out on Friday.
So, and this game supports VR. My dream was to have a VR headset and play the game like this.
Optional VR support, optional HOTAS support. Everything is lining up perfectly. So we're going to play this. Come join our squadron. I'm going to play with mouse and keyboard. But if it becomes a real thing and our squadron sticks together and keeps playing, then I'll go buy some sticks.
This means you got to pull your weight.
Yeah. But
my problem is, independent of that, Microsoft had to fucking release a flight simulator, and basically every hot ass.
Which also, Microsoft Flight Simulator has not been released in how long, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I really want to play that too. You know what I don't have? A hot ass, because they are sold out everywhere on Earth.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because until Microsoft Flight Simulator and Star Wars Squadrons, there was almost nothing anyone needed a hot ass for.
You could use like X-Plane or those nerdy
those
flight
are all,
simulators.
But
or,
you said the word nerdy. Those are not not that many people cared enough to spend like hundreds of dollars on basically a joystick. And even if you did, what games are you going to play with it? The one game you cared about. There's a reason why I only owned 2 joysticks. So they were buried like deep under the bed, like in a container covered in dust, because I have not had a need for a joystick in well over a decade. So what happened to me, we're not going to review Star Wars or talk about it because the game's going to come out. We'll talk about that on Tuesday.
Oh, is Endless Space? Is that the one?
That's one of them.
No, that's a strategy game. It's not the one.
Oh, I'm thinking there's a game that has a name like that I played and didn't
that's
like.
the one I'm trying to think of. I can't remember it right now.
It's probably
Elite Dangerous.
That's one of them that's not good. I did not enjoy Elite Dangerous at all.
Yes, Elite Dangerous is the existing free space shooter where you have to dock very carefully.
So I go and dig out these joysticks. One of them just doesn't work at all. It's USB like 1. That's how old it is. It just didn't work.
It just doesn't work. Like just throw it out in the garbage.
Yeah, I threw it out in the garbage. I plugged it in, and Windows was like, "I don't recognize that device. I don't think it's working."
You just need a driver. You just need a driver.
Yeah, good. I don't think a driver existed for it.
That's not broken. That just means that Windows can't automatically find the driver. Broken is you plug it in, nothing happens.
I got the warning of there's something wrong with this device too. Like there was some problem with it.
I have a feeling if you did a driver, it would have worked.
It also
broken
only has
means nothing happened.
It also only has 2 buttons on it, so it wouldn't have even worked for this purpose.
Yeah, you need quite a few buttons to play Star Wars.
But the other thing in that box was a Mad Catz V1 stick. So I got that one out. That one has twisting. It has a throttle in it, like that'll actually work. Like it's basically the shittiest possible modern USB joystick. It does just work. However,
I'm looking at a picture of this stick on the internet, and yeah, that's
it's the bare minimum. It's the bare minimum. It's the bottom of the barrel.
It's got a trigger. It's got 5 buttons and a little.
It's got more than 5 buttons.
There's 5 gray buttons for the thumb.
Yeah, there's also a pinky button and a fire button and a hat.
Oh, there's more on the front. Yeah, it has 1 hat in the middle there.
Yep. It's also got a throttle at the back.
There's the pinky button. Where's the throttle?
Pinky button's throttle's on the back, just like a little lever.
Oh, it's that little tiny thing that doesn't even look like a throttle. That looks like a foot.
Yeah, but it is a throttle. It'll be good enough. The only problem with this thing, it works. Like I tested it and I also fixed it. However, it was so old because I bought this to play like X-Wing Alliance
Wouldn't it be better to just do mouse and keyboard?
No, fuck that. Are you kidding? You're going to be awful at this game with mouse and keyboard.
Keyboard's got a lot of buttons.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to hit me at any point in this game with a mouse and keyboard.
I mean, if you use mouse and keyboard, the control setup is use the mouse for the pitch and the yaw, right?
Yep.
And then you use your triggers on the mouse for firing, right? And and then on the keyboard you got WASD basically for strafing, left, right, up, down, right, up, down, strafe. And then you use QE for roll, left and right. And then you got to control your throttle maybe with the mouse wheel or the thumb buttons on the side of the mouse or
all right.
something.
Now you can switch weapons. Like it starts. Here's the real problem you're gonna have. Is it? What do you want? Do you want where if you keep moving the mouse forward, you keep going like turning forward, like rolling down or whatever you're going to do? Or do you want it to be where if you move the mouse a certain amount, it's like holding onto the top of a joystick? Because neither of those options works worth a shit.
It's true because like a joystick, right, is
I think
similar,
you're going to be sitting there going, and it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, if you have an analog stick like on a gamepad, right, it's like, yeah, it recenters. If you hold it all the way forward, it's going to keep going, right? A mouse doesn't recenter.
Exactly. So that's where I think you're going to have a lot of trouble. You're not going to be able to maneuver very well. You're going to be like someone playing Doom without a mouse.
I wonder if I could play really shittily on this SN30 Plus.
You might be better off using a gamepad instead. Like use the Switch Pro controller.
Well, SN30 Plus has everything more than has everything, right? I wonder.
I think it'll be. They did say that controllers are supported. I think a controller.
Yeah, I'm sure they're supported, but how good? I'm trying to think. Like, okay, so I have an analog stick, right, for pitch and yaw, right? I actually got 2 analog sticks. So I don't know what I'll use the other one for. And then I can just strafe with the D-pad. How do I roll with L and R? accelerate and decelerate with the other L and R, and then I got 4 more buttons for stuff.
There isn't really strafing in a game like this, though. The way
Yeah,
you're
there is.
describing.
When you move straight up like your
That's
VTOL.
not something that TIE Fighter lets you do. I don't think this game lets you do that either. You gotta have forward momentum.
Descent lets you do. When I
Yeah,
play
Descent does that. None of these other games do.
Oh, that makes it easier then. That means 4 things I don't have to map. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
You
forward
can't just
and forward
move straight.
momentum.
See, but that's the thing is I actually consider Descent, right? That you need. I consider having all those controls to be what a free space shooter is, because if you actually had a spaceship, it could do all those things. There's no gravity.
But free space shooters, a genre, usually means things more like Star Wars games, where that is not true. None of those Star Wars games had that kind of motion.
I thought you could move straight up like VTOL.
When did you last play TIE Fighter?
An X-Wing just takes off. It just goes straight up, right? It doesn't go off a ramp like a Valkyrie.
Did you actually play X-Wing and TIE Fighter?
Watch Star Wars. X-Wing goes straight up.
Yeah, but,
right off the
but we're
ground.
talking about the games. The games did not have that. They never had that.
I'll have to go look that up.
I think your brain is playing tricks on you.
Let's move on to the news.
Anyway, yeah, the problem with this joystick was it was sticky. Like, the buttons made the sickening sound when I pushed them, and I had to take the whole thing apart and like clean it with mineral oil and solvents and like air dusters and everything to make it not feel disgusting to use. And that seems to happen with joysticks that don't have their buttons pressed often enough in general. That was the only thing I was getting to. The joystick was disgusting, but it does work. So you got any news?
What was my news? Yeah, actual anime news. Here we go. Right. Long awaited the movie Lupin III, the First. That's a mouthful. G-Kids licensed it as expected, and they're releasing it in theaters in the U.S.
It's the 3D CG Lupin. I'm pretty excited about it. What I saw looked great.
Yep. At the online Annecy earlier this year, we saw like the first 5 to 10 minutes of it. Looks terrific. I've been eagerly awaiting this movie. I want to watch it. But the problem is, New York, unlike other states, is wisely not allowing people to go to movie theaters.
So if I zoom in on this map here, there's like terrifying, deadly showings all over America. Do not go to these showings if you're listening to this. But if you zoom in, there's nothing in New York. Not anywhere in the whole state.
Nope. However, while it is going to be in select theaters, October 18th dub, 21st sub. I guess if you find a movie theater you can go to all alone safely somehow. I mean, I can't stop you, right?
Don't go to the movies.
Do not go to the movie theater. Maybe someone will do an outdoor showing or something. That'll be cool.
Oh, drive-in.
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, the point is that they are going to soon after, I think possibly as soon as December, it will be available on, I'm not 100% sure of the date, but it will be available in, to buy like, streaming or Blu-ray discs or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
figure out where, and then you can watch it that way in your house.
Yes. So, this will be like the first time I think G-Kids has released a Japanese animation and distribute it in the U.S. that we will not see it in the theaters and immediately do an episode on it. You're going to have to wait a little. You have to wait a little bit. But for some reason, I think we're probably just going to say my prediction, my judging anime by its cover, it's going to be a cookie cutter, by the book Lupin movie that is of high quality, but diverting
not legendary. It's no Fuma conspiracy.
It will not divert from the Lupin formula, but it will also not be. It will be a excellent execution of the Lupin formula with terrific animation and voice acting and such, and well worth your time because an excellent execution of the Lupin formula is worth everyone's time.
Yeah. I mean, I'll even enjoy a really bad Lupin movie. Like, I'll go deep into the Lupin library before it's unwatchable to me. So, a Lupin movie that's just right in the middle of the road, that is a must-see anime movie.
That's right. So there you go.
So some other news. I actually have watched most of the first season of The Owl House, which is I
had never even heard of this until you started posting pictures of the owl.
How did you not? It was really big. It's a Disney TV show. Like, there's a whole story behind it.
I didn't even know it existed until you posted owl photos.
Okay, I think you might literally be living under a rock. First you think that there's translating movement in TIE Fighter, and now you've never heard of this Disney show. Anyway, it is a kids show. It's Alex Hirsch. Like, it's a kids show about a girl who goes to a fantasy world to become a witch and sort of like lives with this witch who doesn't follow the rules, and a demon who's kind of her pet but also her friend. And pretty standard kids show. Like, I'm not going to really get into like what it's really about or anything, but having watched most of it, what I will say is that as a kids show, it is really, really good. And despite being a kids show, I am enjoying it to a very high degree. Like, I would say it is twice as funny as Gravity Falls and aimed at the same demographic as Gravity Falls.
But I mean, the people who enjoyed Gravity Falls are how many years older than they were when they watched Gravity Falls?
Yeah, but the people who would have watched Gravity Falls when it came out, like Gravity Falls, kids show, had some stuff for us, had some stuff for older people, but it was really in the end like a kids show. But the Owl House is sort of, you know how like Simpsons earlier seasons, like during the golden era, were just dense with jokes and dense with writing, and like there was a density of entertainment that is lacking from later Simpsons. The Owl House, compared to Gravity Falls, is extremely dense in that regard. It trusts you to catch jokes. It moves pretty quick. It's really, really funny, and the writing's really good. And I would say, like, just watch the show. Go get it and watch it without even listening to anything else I would say, because I bet at some point Scott will watch it and we'll do a full review. But not only is it really good, it's also pretty gay. Just openly, like, characters just gay, getting relationships, that's totally fine. It's very much a modern kids show. And it's also continuing this trend that Gravity Falls was also a part of, where shows that are aimed at kids are aimed at kids without being insipid or saccharine. This show gets dark and weird. Like, darker than you would expect and weirder than you would expect. And
I mean, Adventure Time already set that bar, right? And that probably wasn't even, the start of it.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't, but we've seen this trend bit by bit more and more properties are willing to be the level of dark and weird that actually resonates with kids. Like, when I was a kid, like, I watched shows like Thundercats, they were okay, but the darker and weirder shows were, the more I was into them. And a lot of adults, especially in the 80s and early 90s, really underestimated how complex of a story or how deep a show could get for kids, where kids would still enjoy it. Kind of like how kids like scary movies. Kids probably like movies.
Saying is, I don't think it's a trend anymore, right? I think it's been just the way of things for quite a while.
I don't think it has been, because for every show like Gravity Falls or Owl House, there is a raft of just completely saccharine, insipid nonsense that we're not going to watch.
Like what?
I don't know, go on Netflix and look at like all the kids shows that are out right now.
I mean, the only time I really see stuff like that is like stuff for like preschoolers, like Peppa Pig or whatever. And that's not even, Peppa Pig's actually not too bad.
But I guess I'd really say...
Not, like, you're not going to watch Peppa Pig.
No.
Right? But it's not... Peppa Pig isn't just like nothing. It's actually like, if you have a preschool kid and they're watching Peppa Pig, it's like, all right.
I do enjoy how the world of the Owl House is basically a city that was built in the decaying body of a giant who died at some point in the distant past.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's basically the setting. So yeah, check this show out. Like, I'm really enjoying it, and it's sort of infiltrating my like mimetic life, and I'm referencing it a lot, even when I don't intend to. And that's how Adventure Time was when I first started watching it. It's scratching a very similar itch to how the early Adventure Time episodes sort of dragged me in. The only kids show thing that is annoying about this show is that it has a moral in every episode, but the moral is always the same, even if it's very brief and doesn't get in the way. And the moral is always one of the characters will face a moral conundrum and do the wrong thing, like uppercase W wrong thing. That will cause extremely dangerous situations. At some point, that character will admit what they did wrong, apologize, and then work to fix it. And it happens like, it's like the Utena stairs, that scene in every episode.
That's a good formula. All right.
Yeah, it works pretty well. Like, it's a good lesson for kids to learn while they're also like getting invested in these pixies that want to steal people's skin for undisclosed reasons. But anyway, things of the day. What do you got?
What was my thing of the day? Oh, right. So if you're listening to this, odds are like nearly 100% chance that you do not have to wait. But we have to wait another 2 to 3 hours, I imagine, for the release.
I mean, I've been waiting my entire life.
Album of the century, Neil Cicerega's Mouth Dreams. Right. So we had Mouth Moods. Right.
Well,
we had
the
Mouth
first
Sounds.
one was Mouth Sounds, which was a lot of Smash Mouth, like mix up, mash up type things. Mouth Silence was when the genre, like this series of albums, moved from I appreciate this music because it's weird and speaks to the weird things that I'm into and references the things I like, to this is music that I will listen to even if it is not weird and mimetic music. Like Mouth Silence is a good album.
Yeah. Mouth Moods is legendary, right?
Oh my
That
God.
is the most...
Bustin'
Mouth Moods is from what? Yeah,
and Tiger.
Bustin' the Tiger. Those are the two. But like all of them are great, but those two definitely stand out amongst, the rest.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. I still remember one PAX. We were playing like music where people were coming into a PAX panel and Tiger played. And we had like 3 different people email us after the panel, be like, yo, the panel was good, but whatever. What the fuck was that song you played that wasn't quite Eye of the Tiger?
Oh, there's also the 300 megabytes one with the
yeah.
QVC person selling the computer.
Oh, but there's the problem is they're actually all really good. Like Pokemon.
But anyway,
Pokemon.
So, whenever someone who just puts out the hits, right? Here it comes. 3 years in the making. Mouth Dreams. There was a small trailer video you can watch, but by the time you hear this, the whole thing will be out for you to go listen to. So there you go. Just go listen to that album on repeat for however long.
The website has, every time he releases one of these albums, he always makes a website with some sort of animated GIF thing. But this one captures the aesthetic of a GeoCities page that is under construction.
One other thing is just, on my Twitter, it's just been I love it the most when I see the different internet communities of, different cultures coming together, right? Because that's sort of what GeekNights is all about, right? We got their tech, we got your gaming, we got your anime, right? But when I look around at other communities, they're focused on one thing. It's like, oh, I look at those people over there, they're anime people. That's all they are. They go deeper on anime than we do, way deep, and I appreciate that. And that's why I pay attention to them and I see what they're up to get my anime feed. But, sure, they play some video games, but they're not talking about like, Pareto Frontiers of it, right? With their video games, they're playing Fall Guys in between their animes, right? right. And yeah, they got computers over there. Maybe they're trying to buy a video card or something, but they're anime people. They're not, rendering videos and programming anything in C and using CUDA cores to, do it, right? And the same thing goes, right? In the tech community, yeah, they might watch an anime, but they're not anime people. Tech people. But when it comes to, if you look at the tweet, right, announcing this album, in the replies, because I see replies when I follow both sides of the reply. That's how Twitter works, right?
Yeah.
I've seen everyone from like New York Rangers podcasters to like video game developers, comic book people.
Yep, like the webcomics community is pretty deep in there.
Yeah, like all these people across the spectrum of nerds and good human beings are all up and like where has this album been? Give it to me now. Why do I have to wait? Oh my, right? It's like, Neil is like the great he's like the secret, cultural phenomenon.
He's one of the most prolific mimetic artists in human history.
But I don't think it's really his prolificness, because he actually doesn't put out lots of stuff. It's that he hits so many home runs. And usually the people we seeing hitting so many home runs are people who are like, have like a formula and a focus. Like we talk about people like, well,
like Science Saru, and they're just cranking out these anime movies. Like every one of them is just going to be
every
great.
single anime movie they make, Miyazaki, at least, and not his son, but, right? Like,
Goro make good movie.
Right. It's like certain people, but they're making one kind of thing and they make it over and over. Neil makes lots of different kinds of things. He doesn't make them on a big Hollywood level, right? With big budgets.
But he hits the core. Like the core is perfect every time.
And that core he hits all the nerds. It doesn't hit some of the. It hits everybody in our culture of millennial and perhaps younger nerdery
Yeah,
time.
well, like you go back through like his body of work, and you're like, wait, the same guy who made like Potter Puppet Pals made Mouth Moods and Lemon Demon the band? What?
Yeah, it's like you just go look at the list of things this dude has made, and also his family is also extremely talented, right? Didn't
Emmy
I think
Cicerega?
Emmy work? Yeah, didn't she work on the Gravity Falls we were just talking about?
I don't even. I should
think?
see if she's involved in the Owl House at all, because it's not out of the realm. But I don't actually know. I didn't check.
Yeah, so it's like, and I don't know who else is in their family. What do I know about them, right? I only know the two people in their family who are creative geniuses. So it's, yep, definitely.
Emily's yelling from the other
room.
room. Emmy Cicerega is in the credits, so she has something to do with the Owl House. I got to go see what she did.
Yep, but yeah, she worked on. She did storyboards in season 2 of Gravity Falls. So
Yeah. So tonight, my evening is just to sit down.
whatever the Cicerega parents. I don't know what their family structure is. Whoever raised those children needs to write a book on raising children. That's all I'm saying.
So my evening will pretty much be just sitting down with a nice drink, some good headphones. I'm just going to listen to this album, and I'm sure I'll
That's
have
what
some
I'm
thoughts
gonna
on
do.
it.
And then 2 evenings from now, listen to that album in my X-wing. X-wings have stereos, right?
I assume so.
Yeah.
So my thing of the day is actually
R2. Play Neil Cicerega.
So this is more topical to the world being on fire. It's a comic. I'll just link to it. Nate Powell. It's a one long web page. You scroll down. It's just a comic that just goes on and on and on all the way down to the bottom. And what it's about is a lot of things, but it basically at the top level talks about how the way military clothing is and police clothing is in the United States, like the uniforms they wear and the perceptions of those uniforms and the codes around them, and the intersection with white supremacy and the rise of like paramilitary nonsense and fascists in the United States, and sort of shows this like very slow and methodical progression toward where we are now in a really fascinating way. This comic might make you think it's a somewhat disturbing and frightening comic. That's on purpose because it's a disturbing and frightening world right now. But I highly recommend you read this comic all the way to the bottom, even if you are made uncomfortable by some of the things that it's talking about. I think it'll hit home in particular if you have police officers or military people in your family, because you'll be much more familiar with some of these things.
Okay.
At a moment, Geek Nights, we're going to be live to tape at yet another con this weekend on Saturday, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Play Dirty to Win. We took a 59.59 panel, and we scrunched it down to 24 minutes and 37 seconds. And that's it. It's going to be in the main MagFest Twitch stream. We will be hanging out in that stream in some capacity, answering questions and doing whatever. It'll be a good time. You should check out the rest of what MagWest 2020 online has to offer, because can't go to a real con. Might as well go to an online con.
And also, unless something happens to me that I do not know is going to happen, because life is unpredictable like that, we will read The Tale of Genji at some point. Someday, and then we will discuss it in an episode on this show that will be probably not get that many downloads or anything, but we'll simply get a lot of laughs and jeers and sarcastic quips from the listener, because we finally did it. Yeah, it's like, okay.
Just do not think that we are not reading The Tale of Genji because we're reading other things. We're just not reading right now. This is not the world where we have time to read books.
The last book that I have read a page of was The Tale of Genji. Oh.
Yep. The last fiction book that I've read a page of is The Tale of Genji. I've been reading nonfiction, but that is because that is in the service of either Geek Nights projects or role-playing games.
I guess I've read parts of a role-playing game.
I reread a big chunk of Blades in the Dark because we just started a new Blades in the Dark game.
Board game rule books don't count either.
No, those definitely do not count. I've been referencing the 1882 rule book to double check some things that I forgot, and I was wrong about a rule that I wasn't thinking about in my head that I should have paid more attention to. But anyway,
I am not good at that one.
I am okay at that one.
I think it's the 18XX game I am worst at is the Canadian one.
So yeah,
I got too used to the speedy ones. The slow one kills. It's not good.
The first time
and
we played
the
this
speedy
one,
ones, I wanted to. It's like when they were playing the speedy ones, I was like, too fast, slow down, let me work my 2 trains. And then it's like, oh, you want to slow down, huh? And I'm like, no.
yeah, I mean the one now
Speed it up.
we're in stock round 5, and there's still 2 3 trains for fucking sale.
Yeah, it's a thing.
I don't know how to navigate that shit.
I got no idea.
If I float
right.
FC, SC, you know what happens? A third 3 train appears.
Ooh.
Maybe I should do it. That'll make sure the D never comes out. So yeah, follow Scott on YouTube, follow me on YouTube. We're doing stuff. We're not going to talk about some of the projects we're working on until we actually do them, because they might fail. Like, I don't know. So stay tuned. We're working on stuff. And now I guess it's just time to talk about Thundercats, because we never talked about Thundercats at any point. At most, we did a show once about the shows we watched as kids. I'm sure we mentioned Thundercats at some point in that, but we definitely did not dwell on Thundercats.
Mm-hmm. So Thundercats for me, it's like you think about the big 80s toy selling cartoons that I watched a lot of, right? And you get your He-Man, you got your Voltron, you got this G.I. Joe, but I didn't really watch that so much.
I watched a lot of G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I only watched a little bit. Thundercats, and what was the last one? Transformers, obviously. Those are like the big. Yeah, but I'm talking about like the She-Ra wasn't as popular in the 80s.
She-Ra was
right?
pretty popular, I want to say. But yeah, anyway, there was a limited set of like mass mainstream kind of bad animated kids show from our childhood.
Action adventure, violent ones. Right?
There's the second tier. Like there's all these other ones.
Sci-fi, robots, warriors, soldiers, stereotypically masculine in some way kind of thing.
There were a lot of second tier ones that all had niche audiences, like Mask or I guess Bionicles. That might have been a little later even.
Bionicle, I think, was way later. That's all
I think it was later. But like there were all those B tier shows. But Thundercats was one of the A tier shows where like when we were in the 80s as kids and early 90s, you're in your elementary school or middle school, every kid knows the deal with Thundercats, even if they do not watch Thundercats.
I don't know if Ghostbusters counts in the same category or not. But anyway.
I don't think I don't know. I don't think it does. I'm
an
executive decision. I'll say no.
Huge show though.
Doesn't
Ninja
count.
Turtles.
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles was 90s though. Ninja Turtles was 90s.
Yeah, we're talking 80s right here.
We're talking right. So basically, the things that were like post Hanna-Barbera, pre Ninja Turtles. That's the zone. Anyway, so yeah, for me at least, Thundercats was actually like the biggest one. I think I actually liked aesthetically Transformers Voltron more, but I had less access to them, right? The Voltron toy was very expensive, and my parents did not buy it for me, even though my friend had it. He-Man, right, was a little bit too early. So I had plenty of He-Man toys, but I didn't have like the big castle, right? I wanted a Castle Grayskull. I didn't have one.
Yep. I was bigger, like He-Man, I was as a kid, like weird, like big into. That was my primary show.
I had a lot of He-Man toys, but I just didn't get to watch a lot of He-Man because it just wasn't on TV a lot. It's like, I was still playing with He-Man toys, but I was hardly watching any He-Man because it wasn't on TV anymore.
I was watching a lot of He-Man. I guess it was just in syndication and where I grew up.
You're a victim, in those days, you were a victim of your local syndicators, what programs they chose to run, right? So it's like, Voltron, it's like I was able to watch some Voltron, but not that much. I wasn't, Transformers disappeared from the airwaves until I think eventually Sci-Fi Channel started running it rarely, occasionally. It wasn't until like Transformers DVDs came out when we were in college that like I could watch Transformers again.
And
Thundercats was very syndicated where I lived, and I watched a lot of it, and I have a lot of memories attached to it. I actually had, the Cat's Lair toy with the flashlight in the head. I think it's still in the attic somewhere. I don't know. Maybe it's gone now. I don't know.
I had Lionel's sword. Like I know I had a toy like that, and some other toys.
I had a Mum-Ra where there'd be a little thing, and you spin it around, and you'd switch between forms. I had a lot of I think almost every Thundercats action figure.
You know what's crazy? I had no action figures.
I had Panthro, Chitara, Lino. I had a Snarf. The Snarf didn't move. It was just like a figurine. I didn't have Wily Cat and Kit. I didn't have them. I didn't have the kids.
So my weird dichotomy of my childhood, I had all the action figures for He-Man, like every action figure, but I didn't have any like life-size toys. But for Thundercats, I had like Lionel's sword and like play hit your brother kind of toys, but I did not have any action figures, not one.
Yep. Panthro's action figure is really good because he has this little sort of like cat nunchucks, and he actually like his arms have action, so he can nunchuck around. It's pretty cool. Anyway,
my friend Joe Ogilvy had those toys.
I actually remember like the day my brother was born. Right, I think my dad came to pick me up at like the nursery school and gave me Lion-O action figure. Anyway, that must have been 1986.
What? Someone's selling the Thundercat Sword of Omens with the working for $500.
No. You just get a new one or make one. Like cosplayer can make a better one. Anyway,
this is exactly the one I had.
Yeah, there was only one. It wasn't like today.
Looks like there was a later one that's slightly fancier.
Okay, so Thundercats, right, was this TV series. It had a few seasons. You saw as much as you could in the day when it was syndicated. Then there was like a remake much later in the 2000s. Like we were already living in Beacon, I think, at the time, or even later. Maybe you were already living in New York then. I don't know.
I remember being really excited about it. We were already in New York City.
We talked about it on this show, and we watched a little bit, and then we're like, meh.
Because honestly,
that's what I remember.
It was crazy boring after the first few episodes. Like it started so strong, and then it just got so boring that I just stopped watching it. I just didn't care. Like the character designs were great. It just didn't go anywhere.
Yep. There's a new thing, relatively new, Thundercats Roar, which is basically the same thing as Teen Titans Go, only Thundercats. I really want to watch it. I just haven't yet.
Same, because I am actually, honestly, a big fan of Teen Titans Go. I do enjoy that kind of comedic, dense, like weird, zoomed in, super deformed nonsense version of a show.
Okay, so what's the deal with the original Thundercats? So the thing about the original Thundercats is that, you know, people can argue about whether it's anime or not, right? I think some Japanese people did some work on it to some extent, right? But in that, despite being a show for American television, right, it was originally, you know, the original language of the show is English, right? It's for an English audience. It's not like it was dubbed over, right? Some original Japanese dialogue or anything. Is that it actually has a somewhat serial plot. It's not just some episodic thing, right? Transformers also has the serial plot, and sort of, I get, but not as much. Thundercats actually has more. You know, I think Thundercats, Transformers, some of the episodes engage in the serial plot, right? But most of them are just like, oh, there goes Megatron stealing some Energon cubes. Let's go fight him. Right. Okay. The end. Oh, it's pretty much like, well, which Autobots are going to fight Megatron this time? Oh, there's a new Decepticon stealing Energon cubes. It's a different toy. All right. Which toys are going to fight over the Energon cubes? Just episodic nothing. And Thundercats does have a lot of episodic nothings, right? Monster of the week, right? So there's like the Burbles, which are basically robot Ewoks that live in the woods. And it's like, well, the mutants are attacking the Burbles again, right? Guess the Thundercats are gonna roll out in their Thunder tank and save them, you know. But like the second season of Thundercats is like, it starts with like a 6-parter. That's like sort of like a movie. I think it's 6 parts. The start of Thundercats, the very beginning.
Well, there's the 1986 movie after season 1, just Thundercats Ho.
Yeah, well, that's the start of. That's broken up into episodes. That's the start of season 2. Season 1 starts with a multi-parter. That's the start of Thundercats, right? And while there are lots of episodes that are just fight a bad guy, it's like the last season, they're actually like leaving the planet and going to New Thundera and leaving, you know, it's
I never got that far.
I only saw those episodes on Toonami later in the day. They didn't syndicate those episodes where I lived. So I didn't realize
we talk about the problem of syndication. For me, part of the reason why I was so much more into He-Man was that we got the episodes reliably. Thundercats was either aired out of order or at weird times, so I saw Thundercats in such a like broken order that I couldn't find any plot thread as a kid.
I had VHS, so I knew the plot. And the thing about Thundercats that I think is not just that it was serialized, right, is that there's a lot of things that like I as a kid I had them confused in my mind because Thundercats stole from them, right? So if you think about it, right, Thundercats has so much fucking Star Wars in it, right? It's like, you know, Obi-Wan appears to Luke as like a ghost, right? as a kid, I was confused because you had Jaga appearing as a ghost to Lion-O, right?
You got
Same
Mumra,
thing.
who's basically just Emperor Palpatine.
Sort of. Mumra's a little different,
Well,
right?
it depends.
But it's
when Mumra invokes
and
these
then
spirits of
I
ancient
already
evil.
mentioned the burbles that are straight up Ewoks,
Mm.
right? You have that same sort of relationship between the mutants and Mumra that you have between Starscream and Megatron, where it's sort of like the bad guys that don't get along, right?
He-Man
like
had that too.
Yep. You have this sort of Superman story, right? So the story of Superman is that, he comes he's escaping an exploding planet and crash lands on Earth, right? Well, Lion-O and all the Thundercats are escaping an exploding Thundera and crashing on, what's the whatever.
I'm trying to find the name of this place. I do not remember.
Yeah, or maybe Thundera is the planet they land on, but no, Thundera is the one that explodes.
I thought you were a fan of Thundercats. Thundera is the planet that was dying.
Yes, they knew Thundera is the one they go to in season 4. What's the one that that most of Thundercats takes place on, where they build the cat slayer?
I'm trying to figure that out. There are a lot of proper nouns in this Wikipedia article.
There sure are. Right? But it's like Superman, plus you got this kid, Lion-O, who's very young, and they're in suspended animation when they're flying from the, exploding Thundera. And then when they land, Lion-O's in a way older body, but is still a kid in mind and heart, and he sort of grows up emotionally, right? Even though he's like a kid in an adult's body. So that's the kid in an adult's body story you saw several times in that Big, right?
So as a kid, I had no idea that was a thing because I never saw any of the plot setup episodes until
I only had that
later.
because I had VHS of that beginning part that I was able to see it.
Yep. All I knew was, the Thundercats live on this planet and they're fighting with the mutants of Plundar and there's a mummy guy and that's it.
Even as a kid, I was wondering, how come the adult Thundercats didn't get older in suspended animation? Only Lion-O did. You've got some, and it's like all that serious kind of stuff, right? You also have a lot of sci-fi kind of plots, like space plots. There's that are similar to some Voltron-ish Star Trek stuff almost, right? Of things they encounter in space, or people from space that happen to come and appear, and you got fantasy sort of like Holy Grail kind of stories, like Lion-O goes on a vision quest out in the mountains by himself kind of stuff, right? To consult with the Sword of Omens and shit,
but
books
that was
of
the one thing
omens,
that
all magical artifacts.
Even not seeing enough plot, not knowing what the actual plot was as a kid, part of what I liked about Thundercats compared to He-Man and everything else that I was watching was that the characters did seem to grow and change, and there was a relatively rich world that was implied by things I saw in episodes, as opposed to He-Man, where everything's just empty and barren, and there was nothing. As far as I was concerned as a kid, Castle Grayskull didn't exist because they never did anything with it. They never followed those threads. But these characters were rich enough, even to my kid brain, to where I had this impression that there was other Thundercats I hadn't seen that would explain a bunch of stuff. And as a kid, I was actually weirdly obsessed with seeing.
They're just really far away.
Yeah. But I wanted to know more about the world and about where they were going. My kid brain was starting to figure out that I wanted to watch serials.
Yeah, I mean, Transformers also had the world building with the Cybertron and stuff. It's just a lot of Transformers doesn't use that world building except for the movie, right? Thundercats, a lot of the episodes, maybe even half of them, maybe say use it, and the other half are fight Mumra again. Mumra's up to something. Go fight him. Right? He goes back to his mummy form. The end. Whatever. Fight some mutants. Okay, go back. Whatever.
Yeah, the mutants. As a kid, I hated the mutants because I was like, why are they so dumb? Why does Mumra even work with them?
So you have this serious sort of serial plot, and you're sort of going back and forth with that to the less serious, silly stuff like Snarf and mutants and these characters and set pieces that are just sort of corny children's television, sort of mixed together. So it's almost like if you were watching Star Wars, and Star Wars has some corniness already into it, right? But imagine if you took the Star Wars Christmas special and cut it and inserted those scenes into Star Wars and made one big law, right? So it's like you're watching Star Wars, and then suddenly it's a scene from the Christmas special, and then it's a scene from Star Wars, and then a scene from Christmas special, right?
I remember as a kid, like that, it annoyed me the same way that the villains in, like, for some reason as a kid, I always saw Skeletor as being super competent, and I hated all of his minions because they were so bad at this. And Thundercats, same thing. It was like, Mum-Ra knows what's up. Why doesn't Mum-Ra get better minions?
See, the thing is about Thundercats that actually I thought was really awesome is, I think some people don't like think about it too hard, is that the real villains are these ancient spirits of evil. There's actually like a Cthulhu kind of, esque story going on here, right? Mum-Ra is just some dude.
He's the vessel, right?
Right. He's just some dude who's like a mummy, who has managed to live for a long time because these 4 basically elder gods are keeping him alive with unnatural dark powers.
He's basically like Zelos from Slayers. He like pledged himself to them. I got that as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's like, he's not strong. He's just a mummy. If Lion-O could figure out getting that pyramid, which I think they do try to do on occasion, it's like, you could just cut up that mummy and that'd be it, right? But the ancient spirits of evil are so freaking strong. They turn Mum-Ra into like, not God tier, but we're talking like Hercules tier, like avatar of themselves, right? Because they can't, I guess, directly interact. So it's like they want Mum-Ra to succeed, but they also don't trust Mum-Ra entirely because he's right.
Gotta keep Mum-Ra on a short leash because he was definitely an ambitious individual.
Yeah, and they can't really do things direct. Like they can't just kill Lion-O directly, right? I guess they're too ethereal and far away. So all they can really do is help Mum-Ra magically, almost like he's a cleric of them, and he prays, and then they get magic, right? They're not looking too closely. They got other shit going on in other places.
The one thing that did also stand out as a kid, I remember, I'm always just comparing it to He-Man because these were the two shows. The point is, I always wanted to see, like, if the show were to go on, like, they go out and they find and they fight the ancient spirits of evil. There's 4 of them, right? So like they could find where they are, and they would be super creepy. That could be a good fan. I'm sure there's a fan fiction of that, right? It has to be. Is there a Wikipedia article on the ancient spirits of evil? Because there's a whole Wikipedia article just on Mum-Ra. Ancient spirits of evil. All right, here's the full story. There is more lore about them in the later incarnations of Thundercats that I'm not going to read to all of you here. But they're basically a boar, a vulture, a crocodile, and an ox. I don't know if I even picked up on that as a kid. I don't think I did.
Yeah, they're just 4 generally pagan images.
Yeah,
they're not.
I think it was partly
it's never said.
TV broadcasts were really bad. Like I remember whenever he did the ancient spirits of evil thing, the screen was always so dark that
that's the Zetai Unmei Moku Shiroku of Thundercats.
Yeah, but it would kind of pan up to like these vague statues. I'm just going from memory here, but it was always so dark that I couldn't see anything.
Oh, okay. So I guess I don't know if I had a better TV.
Yeah, or maybe it was in the syndication and it was like a worse broadcast. Like I have no idea.
I have no idea. But yeah, Thundercats. I think I haven't watched Thundercats in quite a while, years. But the feeling I get is that it would hold up, right? I feel like I could skip over by looking at the episode list on Wikipedia these sort of monster of the week episodes that don't advance the plot at all,
and just
watch the multi-part episodes and the plot significant episodes. And even though there might be some corny things in there, like some Snarf appearances or whatever, right? It's like Snarf does have redeeming qualities. He's not just completely annoying.
Yeah, Snarf saves the day a few times.
Snarf is way better than Jar Jar Binks by like 1 million, right? He shares some qualities with Jar Jar Binks type character, but is vastly superior, right?
So one thing I knew as a kid was that the ancient spirits of evil can't like get out of the pyramid, so they need Mum-Ra to go out to do stuff.
Yeah,
but apparently in one episode, the episode called Doom Gaze, I don't know what that episode was about, but apparently there is some lore dropped in the episode that the ancient spirits of evil are Lovecraft's great old ones specifically and on purpose.
Oh, I mean, I always had the feeling that they were in that vein.
Because Mum-Ra invokes in that episode by name 2 other entities, not the Yog-Sothoth and Cthulhu specifically.
Uh-huh.
So the episode is called Doom Gaze. Maybe we should watch it.
Maybe. I mean, it's also worth noting the real Ghostbusters has an episode where Cthulhu comes and there's like, yellow sign cultists
No, it's
trying
an
to do
aside.
shit.
Talking about shows that were ahead of their time, the Ghostbusters cartoon was the scary, like, it was like the Owl House today, and that was the level of scary weird that kids actually resonated with. I think a lot of parents didn't expect that cartoon to be as weird as it was because body horror played into like 75% of those episodes. Yeah, I'm actually getting drawn into this. I'm reading the Wikipedia lore to piece together all the stuff as a kid I could not figure out about the Thundercats universe because I saw it in random order.
And that's what I'm saying is I think that growing up with the Thundercats that had this serial plot that drew upon, right, Star Wars, Superman, these other things, right? It's just so many, it's like it's actually not very original when you look at it. It's like an amalgamation of all the other nerdy types of stories that I'm into. And I can tie sort of almost everything else I like. Like you can see it in Thundercats. And maybe it was, I don't know for sure, right? But I feel like it was sort of this reverse thing where like I was so young watching Thundercats and that made me like that. So now I like all the things. Right.
Well, when I think about that, you make a good point because I was more into He-Man, like at a similar age to you. And the thing I was obsessed with in He-Man, but the show didn't tell me about, was what's the deal with Castle Grayskull?
I wanted to know that too, of course.
No, but because specifically, what's one of the primary things that I am like weirdly into to this day, specifically, is precursor technology. The idea that there is magic that is actually science and people just forgot about it.
Thundercats definitely has that.
Thundercats
in spades,
and He-Man both had that in spades.
Yep. Yeah, I think also part of what Thundercats does is that you have this, the Thundercats civilization that they leave is like a great civilization, just like Krypton and Superman.
Though who escaped? It seems like only like a few of them escaped. Like, is every other Thundercat dead?
No, there are some others that survive that you'll see in season.
See, I never saw those episodes. I don't think I ever saw another Thundercat than the main crew.
There's a few.
I remember Snarf. There was a worse Snarf that showed up at one point.
Yeah, I think that's also.
I do remember there was a Scrappy Doo to Scooby Doo situation.
It's like a symbiotic. I consider like the Snarf species is whatever species that is. Are they Snarfs? Is that what they are? I don't know.
Wikipedia says like the Snarfs are a race of intelligent cat-like creatures that are plump, fuzzy, and kind. They're native to Thundara, living in the Valley of the Snarfs, and they act as servants to the Thundarian nobility.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So okay, the one I remembered is literally named Snarf-Ra.
Yep, that's right.
Snarf's nephew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I'm disturbed because when Snarf-Ra appears, it was thought that he died when Thundara exploded along with all of the other Snarfs, and everyone was surprised that he survived, implying that all the other Snarfs died.
They did, yeah.
So the Thundercats didn't fucking bring their servant class. They had a servant class that they left behind on their dying planet.
No, I told you it's a Superman story, right? It's like, Superman escaped from Krypton on his own in a little tiny thing, right? So if you watch those first two episodes of Thundercats that I saw many times on VHS, you'll see that basically it's Lion-O, it's the Thundercats, Lion-O, Panthro, the two kids, Chitara, Tigra, and Snarf. And Jaga, basically dies. He's Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? And it's pretty much just them in suspended animation and no one else. No one else can fit in the ship. And they basically Jaga knows that Lion-O is like the chosen one already, right?
Okay.
And he basically takes the chosen one and he takes Paul Atreides and he puts him on the ship with these guardians, right? And the Sword of Omens. And he sort of, gives him advice and he appears as a ghost to help him out and he sends him on his way, right? So, and everyone else, on Thundara supposedly bites it until you find out later that some survived, right? So.
Apparently at some point, I never saw this episode, Snarf convinces the ancient spirits of evil to power him up and become Snarf-Ra.
I never heard, I don't remember that.
Now I'm looking up Snarf-Ra.
Don't remember that one.
Apparently that appears to have happened. I pulled up a Wikipedia page and now a video. Snarf is in the temple, and there is a super buff, hot Snarf who is, that was a thing. I guess we never saw that episode.
Clip it. I never seen that one. Clip it. Or at least I don't remember it.
Season 2, episode 24, Hair of the Dog. Snarf convinces the ancient spirits of evil to give him power.
What the hell?
That's something that I think is universal to kids shows in the 80s and maybe the 90s, but is not a thing anymore. Kids today, when they watch a show, they go to the streaming service and they just watch the whole show. When we were kids, like, I would see some like set of episodes of Thundercats, but other kids in my school saw different episodes. So a big part of my interaction with kids when I was growing up was sharing lore that we each knew to try to figure things out about shows. Like someone would say, oh, there's the episode where, well, like we do just now, when Snarf gets the ancient powers of evil. Like, you didn't know about that. That was like 90% of my interaction with other kids was talking about the shows we were watching and the lack of intersection of what episodes we had seen due to different syndication schedules.
Yeah, see, I think kids that I talk to is basically, we wouldn't do that because I don't remember talking about like cartoons or anything with our kids. We mostly talked about video games and shared, tips and things. But the problem is at least so many kids would basically make stuff up, right? It's like, so there wasn't a lot of trust between, kids.
I was
right?
about to bring that up because in those interactions, kids would make up stuff about these shows that I could not disprove because I didn't know. I hadn't seen whatever episode they saw.
Yep.
There's this kid, Billy. Oh, this is flooding back to me. He made up so
My uncle
much.
works at Nintendo.
Yep. He made up so much stuff about He-Man in particular, and I believed him for a long time until eventually, I think it was my dad, like someone in my family, might have been my uncle, was like, no, none of that's true, because he'd actually seen all the episodes of He-Man. And he was like, nah, that kid's making shit up.
I remember, kids were making stuff up all the time. There was a kid in 4th grade who was actually a Japanese kid. Like his parents, moved from Japan to my town. He was in the class. There he was, right? Obviously had gone to much better schools in the previous years of his life and was smarter than all of us, except in English, so we didn't talk too much. But I remember we did a school activity where you would draw a picture of what you wanted for your holiday gifts for whatever holiday you celebrated. And he drew a Super Famicom, and we were like, we're making that shit up. There's no such, right? we're like, there's no, right? He was making shit. It's like, no, that was the one time a kid wasn't making shit up. He drew a perfect Super Famicom. Right? It's like he knew they existed, and we had never heard of one.
Mostly what kids would make up were crossover episodes that never happened. Like, that's what I remember the most. Like, there was the episode where Thundercats and He-Man were together. Like, that didn't happen, kid. No.
Yeah, the Super Nintendo came out in November of 1990, right? So it had probably just come out in 1990, right? So I was what, 8? And I was 8. I was like in 4th grade, yeah. So probably in like November of 1990, it had just come out.
Yeah.
He knew about it because he was actually Japanese. He wanted it for Christmas in December, right? And we didn't even know about it because it didn't come out in the U.S. until August of 91. So I guess a few months later, we found out he wasn't bluffing.
Oh, shit. Snarf is like twice as tall as Mumra when he gets powered up and beats the shit out of him.
Oh, pretty cool.
They also draw him differently in every scene, but that's just how animation was on TV back then.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that Thundercats has a lot of redeeming qualities. It's not just like garbage, unwatchable like He-Man.
Oh, yeah. Like the fact that I was so into He-Man as a kid, that is just a product of the syndication of my area. He-Man is objectively one of the worst kid shows from that era, from every conceivable angle.
I think even your shows like Mask, which probably had much better toys than Thundercats, which just had action figures, right? Is probably not as good as Thundercats. And Transformers,
definitely not.
Transformers, I think, is arguable, but you have to. There's so much more Transformers. I think you would have to like.
I've admitted this on the show before, but it was a long time ago. But I will admit, as a kid, I did not actually like Transformers.
I mean, it depends what Transformers you saw, how old you were when you saw it.
Yeah,
Transformer is definitely the king of toys, right? Like a transforming toy. It's like you couldn't beat that.
Yep, I think that's why I was so into Mask, because the Mask toys transformed so much better, and my like of the show was 100% from my like of the toys, not the other way around.
Anyway.
Yeah. But no, Thundercats holds up better than a lot of those shows from that era. And I
think Thundercats might be, as a show, I think it may be the best one per episode divided by quality.
It's just weird to me that I have such strong memories of liking Thundercats a lot, yet can remember almost nothing specific from Thundercats.
But yeah, also the music in Thundercats.
Pretty good opening theme.
Do, 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 do.
All right, I think we killed enough time on this episode.
Yeah, I kind of want to watch. I got to figure out where you can legally watch all of Thundercats.
Or
illegally.
I'll send you a link to this clip where you can watch Snarf beat the shit out of Mum-Ra.
Or I'll just go to Jan. Download all of Thundercats.
I don't know if I have time to watch all of Thundercats right now.
Like I said, I'm going to skip the. If I do watch it, I will skip the nothing episodes. I'll just watch the ones where stuff happens. It's good.
Yeah. I'm going to go watch this Doomgaze episode because I want to see what the deal is with the reference to Lovecraft. Because that is something I knew Lovecraft and was into it by like middle school, but by then I was not thinking about Thundercats anymore. So whenever that episode happened, even if I saw it, there is no way I would have recognized what Cthulhu was, though my parents might have.
Maybe.
I think we're done.